right, here we go. My number 10. I wanted to be a postal worker. I wanted to be a postman. I loved I thought the idea of delivering people's mail was like the coolest thing as a kid. And like people usually get excited. At least back then, they'd get excited. I think now you get excited too, even though I get a lot of bills in the mail and a lot of other like spam mail, political mail that I don't necessarily want to get. But think about the joy. At least I remember being excited when the mailman or mailwoman came to the door and delivered mail. You were always hoping for something, right? Or if it was around your birthday, you were hoping that you were getting a nice birthday card or some kind of present, some kind of box being shipped to you. Mail was exciting. It certainly was. And just the idea of just walking around, right, getting a nice workout in, and you can put some headphones on. You get to drive in those little trucks and go from neighborhood to neighborhood and deliver mail. And I have applied in recent years to do it. It just seems so complicated. It seems it's such a desirable job too that it's hard to find places. Like if you really want to do it, like you probably have to move elsewhere. Probably missed the boat on it, but that's one I remember just thinking that how cool would that be to be a postal worker. So that is my number 10. All right, my number 9. It's actually the reason why I'm wearing this shirt for this episode because it fits in with this, sort of. But one of my favorite video games of all time is Resident Evil. We did a list for it back in March. But I found a bunch of Resident Evil themed button-up shirts on a website, and I bought them all. And this happens to be one of them. This is a Raccoon City police officer shirt. And for those who don't know, Raccoon City is the hub of the first couple of Resident Evil games. And yeah, so I thought I'd buy it. So that's why I'm dressed like a mall cop today. But there was a point in time where I wanted to be a police officer. I thought they was the coolest thing, right? These people that are meant to do good, right? They're believe in the badge and they help out the community, keep people safe. And I still believe in that. I do. You know, there's a lot of great videos of good cops and doing great things for human beings, protecting, saving, encouraging, and just being involved in the community. I used to love watching videos of cops playing basketball with kids or throwing football around, you know, or just anything of that sort. And I'm like, man, how cool would that be? To be one of those people that is a shining example of what a police officer can and should be. Unfortunately now, this isn't an excuse for not being one, but there's an anti-cop sentiment. A lot of the bad officers who have done bad things and are in the force for all of the wrong reasons, their bad actions get amplified, and it's unfortunate. It's unfortunate that there's a generalized stigma against all police officers because a percentage of them should not be in the position that they are in. I know that I would be. I know that I would be one of the good examples. But it's also very scary out there right now to be a police officer. People are looking for you to breathe the wrong way so they can film you and put you on social media. And granted, if you're doing the right thing, you shouldn't fear that. But things can get twisted very easily. So probably a career that it was best to stay away from. I don't know. I'm not a tough guy either. I'm not. My wife was like, "Why don't you go be like a security guard?" I'm like, "No. I don't want to hurt people or throw them out or have to yell at people. That's just not who I am. It's really not who I am. It's probably for the best that I was not. I'd be softer than baby shit as a police officer. I'd pull people over for speeding, going like 20 miles an hour, and be like, "Oh, it's okay. Just don't do that again," and just let them go. All right, soft. super soft. It's who I am. So that's my number 9. It was to be a police officer. Number 8, and actually my next 2, I think that if I ever came into some money, I would definitely still pursue these. But my number 8 is to own a video game arcade. I grew up in the dying era of video game arcades in the 90s, and we had Aladdin's Castle in the local mall. We've had, there's a couple other different arcade places, but it was great. The whole idea, come in, pop in quarters, play video games, have a good time, was enticing to me. And I remember being a kid playing at Aladdin's Castle and being like, you know what, it'd be really cool to do that. I have a whole business model in my mind as far as how I would do it, and I think I could pull it off in the year 2025. I really do believe that. I think there's a simple yet effective way to do it, but video games have been such an important part of my life, so why wouldn't I want to immerse myself in that? Why wouldn't I want to make that a business model and try and find a way to make it successful? And there's a lot of good, great, memories I have being around video games. So why not give people a place that they could do that at? So own an arcade. That is my number 8. My number 7, another thing that I've discussed that means a lot to me, is to own a toy store. All right, Toys R Us, KB Toys, those were my favorite places to go. Kmart had a great toy section back in the day. Those were my favorite places to go and be. And I grew up. You grew up. You see, like in movies and such. Like I remember Home Alone 2. The toy store owner in New York City, and how much delight it made him to kind of to have that business. And toy stores just make people happy. I like to make people happy. Even at my own mental and physical exhaustion, I like to make people happy. And what would be better than, as someone who loved toys growing up, to own a toy store? All right. Didn't have to be a Toys R Us. It could have been a custom-made one. But toy stores, it's a crazy business. It is expensive, especially if you're in the nostalgic collector's toy store business. The pricing is just insane. I've walked in a couple and just walked right out. When I'm seeing figures that I grew up and they were $6-7 going for $45, $50 nowadays, I can't justify it. So own a toy store. That's my number 7. My number 6, I didn't pursue this in college, even though I kind of wish I would have, but I wanted to be a U.S. history teacher. That was on my mind many, many times over. I love history through and through, and we did a whole episode on it already. I think I would have made a pretty decent history teacher. It's one of those subjects that a lot of people don't look forward to. A lot of kids didn't look forward to social studies class. They hated it. They despised it. They thought it was the dumbest thing. And depending on who you had as a teacher, yeah, they were probably right. That social studies may have been the worst class that they had in school. All right. Especially, too, when history is not taught accurately in school. All right. It's a little vague. It's very vague at times because there's certain things that they want to hit. And that's, I think, the biggest downfall of history class is everything that I've learned after school changes what I was taught while I was in school. But I think I would have made a pretty good history teacher, whether it was U.S. or world or something like that. I would have had a lot of fun doing that, and I think I would have tried my best to make it fun for students taking my classes. So history teacher, that's my number 6. My number 5 is sports journalist. And I got to live that dream voluntarily a little bit. So years ago, I was very lucky to benefit from a friendship with a guy by the name of Nick. I won't say his last name for privacy's sake, but he ran a media outlet around here called Bill's Wire. It was through USA Today. And he had seen I was doing podcasting and such, and he was like, hey, do you want to run our Bill's Wire podcast? I was like, oh, shoot. Okay, let's give it a whirl. And I did, and it was a volunteer job. It was a great foot in the door, great way to mosey on in. I did podcasting. I eventually learned how to write articles, which is a lot of fun. And I wrote some bangers back in the day. Let's say that it was a lot of fun to do that. But being a sports journalist, even at a young age, when I didn't necessarily love sports, but the idea of writing was on my mind all the time. We actually, in third grade, we did a pseudo Christmas magazine where we had to pick stuff out and write articles and stuff about it. And I was like, this is fun. This is a lot of fun. So I think I would have made a decent sports journalist. I try to, as best as I can, operate with integrity and not demean for clicks or what. Sports journalism right now is just terrible. Anybody can throw together a sports journalism website and post clickbait headlines and get money, ads, all that crap very easily. But as a kid, it was definitely something I aspired to be, and something I thought I was maybe close to in adulthood. So that's my number 5. Number 4, sticking within the same vein of writing, I wanted to be an author. When I was growing up. Big book fan. Talked about that plenty. And I used to write stories all the time. I had a notebook full of stories back in the day. I would put myself into various fictional worlds that I loved and adored. One of the big ones, I grew up, at Final Fantasy is one of my favorite video game franchises. So I would actually write stories and put myself in, have my own Final Fantasy-like adventures and put myself in their worlds, or take influence from those in those games and put them into our own world. And it was a lot of fun. It was a lot of fun to write those out, and I did that many, many, many times over. And I would just hold on to the books, and I would just write and write and write, and then when I filled up the notebook, I didn't read it until I filled up the notebook. And that was a big passion of mine. So I always felt like I could do stories, novels. I had a decent idea of flow, structure. I think children's books would be a lot of fun to write, because it's one of those ones where if you find a way to hit and be an iconic children's book author, you're immortalized. You are absolutely immortalized. Even at 30 years old, and some people 30, 40 years old, they still remember those iconic children's books that they grew up. I remember the Boxcar Children and Flat Stanley, the Very Hungry Caterpillar, Chicka Chicka Boom Boom. All those books that were, there's so many more. There's so many more, but just iconic. And like I get giddy and excited when I'm passing through a bookstore and I still see those books. So number 4, author. Number 3, this is what I actually went to school for, and I failed twice at it. The second time was a little bit better of an effort, but if you're going to college, you got to focus on college. I was going to college. I was in a serious relationship. I was trying to be a pro wrestler. I was living in an apartment, so I had to have a job. I wasn't focused. I was too distracted. But I wanted to be a phys ed teacher. I wanted to teach phys ed class because I thought it was the best class in school that you could ever take. I love the idea of physical activity and going to relieve some stress. All right, okay. Science class was rough, but hey, I get to go play dodgeball next period. I always thought that was cool as a student, and I think there would be a lot of fun stuff for me to offer as a teacher. I had a lot of great phys ed teachers in my time growing up, going through school. A lot of great ones. And I looked forward to phys ed class. I really, truly did. And that was the one thing that I really actively pursued in college, and I wish I would have stuck with it. I wish I really wanted to stick with it. So that is my number 3, a phys ed teacher. Number 2, this is probably my biggest delusion of grandeur, but it was to be a pro wrestler. And I sort of did that. All right. So there's a sad, traumatic memory that I have of talking about this openly in class. I was in 8th grade in my home and careers class, and we were doing some kind of careers thing, like look up on the computer. And I'm looking through stuff, and I go, hey, my teacher's like, well, I'm like, I can't find anything. Like, there's nothing I really gravitate towards. She goes, well, what do you want to be? I go, I want to be a pro wrestler. And she started laughing. She goes, well, I want to be a sumo wrestler. And the whole class started laughing at me. And it was really, really embarrassing. It was like that coming of age TV show moment where I came home and ripped down all the wrestling posters in my bedroom. And that's legit what happened. That's legit. I was so upset and heated that this teacher, and this is why I think education is such a weird thing, but I hated that this teacher who's really paid to help inspire people did that to me. And I wish I would have held on to that motivation while I was doing pro wrestling, throughout. It was my inspiration to kind of get into it a little bit. I was so ready to prove this lady wrong. So partially, I went into it with the wrong mindset. But I had a great couple years doing it. I had a lot of fun. And I do believe that much like my another attempt at college, I think I could do that a lot better now. I think that I've become a lot wiser when it comes to looking at professional wrestling. I think I've become a lot wiser when it comes to looking at professional wrestling and how to organize matches and all that stuff. Like, be a wrestler that people actually get excited to see and not just another guy. I feel like I've learned from my time away. It's been 11 years at this point since I was full-time, going through with it. I think I could do really good stuff as a pro, but no, I'm not interested in going back into it. But as a kid watching it, that was a big thing. It's actually funny. A story my parents love to tell is that when they were talking about, they were like, oh, they were trying to find sports for me to like, because I didn't like football. I didn't really care for baseball, but that was probably the simplest thing that I did. But I remember them bringing up wrestling. Like, oh, we should get him into wrestling. And I had no idea what high school, college, Olympic style wrestling was at that point. I did not have a single clue. So my first thing I said, ooh, what's my name gonna be? That was literally my first reaction to it. What's my name? What's my wrestling name gonna be? And I started thinking about, doing training and practice matches in a wrestling ring and all this stuff. And that was where my head was at. This is me at 7, 8 years old. So the version of me that got to do pro wrestling for any amount of time, I think that 7, 8-year-old me would be pretty proud. But yeah, it's something I kind of wish I would have stuck with. I wish I didn't let people close to me deter me from that, and try their hardest to intervene and get me out of it. But yeah, being a pro wrestler was my number 2 thing that I wanted to be when I grew up. And my number 1. This is probably my favorite one, and something I've never gotten to talk about publicly on this show. But there was a stint between the 3rd and 5th grade where the job I wanted, the career I wanted, what I definitely wanted to be when I grew up was a video game designer. I had a notebook. It was a binder. And what I would do is I'd write out video games, write out stories, plots, certain things, and I'd store them in this folder. And it was It was mine. And it was mine. All right. It was, instead of writing stories, I was writing ideas for video games that I thought would be cool. And a lot of it was goofy, outlandish. I think I wrote 64 different versions of Crash Bandicoot games. So I'm sure, I don't think all those would have panned out, but it was really cool that like this immersed like my time, my creative energy, is that I would put a lot of time into this. I had binders. I actually ended up having like 2 binders full of this. But it was cool. I wish I still held on to those. Those binders went missing many, many, many years ago. But I was legitimately obsessed. I would try and draw covers. But I probably wrote out the ideas for 200 to 300 different video games. And I loved it. It was something to look forward to every single day. 3 years of that, of writing them out. They had this little binder, literally video game ideas. And never pursued it. And I don't know. I don't know how the video game industry works. But for a kid between the ages of 8 to 11, 8 to 12 years old, that was like the dream. That was what I like. I was like, man, I really want to do this. Look at all these ideas I got. I'm showing people. I'd go to family parties and show people, hey, can you read this? Can you read that? Yeah, that was a cool dream. So, but there it is, everybody. That is the list. That is the top 10 things that I wanted to be when I grew up.